couple of petitions are circulating right now demanding that universities institute mandatory anti-racism courses for all students. Now, online petitions can really be a hit or miss, but in a climate where everyone is currently hypersensitive about racial issues, and with our education system that says the customer is always right and we want student tuition money, so we'll do whatever the students want, this means that students, when they're demanding a mandatory anti-racism course, it is very feasible that at least a couple universities will go along with this. One such petition is addressed to the University of Ottawa and Carleton University, and all of these petitions that I'm bringing up have at least 10,000 signatures. So this petition that is addressed to the University of Ottawa and Carleton University is asking for a mandatory anti-racism course for all degrees at the University of Ottawa and Carleton University. And in their description of their online petition, they don't even really extrapolate on why that might be necessary. They just kind of assume that it is necessary. The petition says, "It is time to stand up for marginalized students attending your institutions." There is one for the University of Toronto as well, but the description of the online petition is very sparse. And then there is one student at Ryerson University who actually wants to make an anti-racism course mandatory for high school students. So this one is addressed to the Ontario Ministry of Education. Part of it reads, "Our current primary and secondary education programs do not address the existence of racism in Canada in the past and in the present. Without educating students on the full extent of the history of racism and cultural assimilation in the past, we are perpetuating a continual cycle of colonialism today." Now, what's interesting here is how the person who started this petition, this student at Ryerson, she frames it as a lack of education. I don't know about you, but I went through the public school system in BC, and I 100% remember learning all about residential schools, injustices towards Indigenous people. We learned all about Africville in Nova Scotia. We learned about the Chinese head tax, Japanese internment camps. I remember in grade 10 watching the 2004 movie Crash, which is about racial tensions and injustices, and one of the main themes involves police. So even though that was a film from over 15 years ago, very topical to today. And so when I hear this argument that, there's just nothing about residential schools, there's nothing about historical racism in the education system, I think maybe these people just don't remember. And so when I was learning about all this in school, I don't have any memory of it being dogmatic. So from what I recall, when we learned about these historical injustices, like the Chinese head tax, Africville, residential schools, they were not steeped in ideology with terms like white privilege and white fragility and systemic racism. We just learned what happened and we knew it was wrong. But feel free to share in the comments what your experience was, what you can remember, and how long ago it was. Not to be too cynical, but I just see these mandatory anti-racism courses as a way of employing academics or, people with master's degrees who specialized in social justice and identity studies. It's just a way of perpetuating their industry and giving themselves work because there are only so many diversity officer jobs to go around. And of course, yes, they want to spread their ideas and instill their ideas about white privilege and white fragility and systemic racism. So while it might sound relatively harmless to have a course called Race and Ethnicity Studies or Anti-Racism 101, we must understand that they don't want these courses instituted for the purpose of fact-based information transmission. They want to use these courses to promote very specific views on topics like white privilege and systemic racism, and they want to promote their agenda of how to right historical wrongs. And they want to give themselves jobs. I'm Lindsay Shepherd with True North. Thanks so much for watching.